Hey everyone, PJ back at you with a video here. So we've got back in-house here our Value line of PLA. It's made in Europe. It's actually prints really well for the cost. You won't find, in my opinion, another economy brand PLA like this, biodegradable, that prints as well as this, in my opinion. So let's just run you over. We did some Matter Hackers astronauts here in all the colors we carry. You have your white, silver, green, red, blue, black, orange, and gray. Now, to keep everything consistent, we use the same printer in the same settings across the board. Now, as you can see here, some of them do have a little bit of differences in them, and that's where we're gonna do a little bit of screen sharing to show you how you can tweak for each color due to the additives in there to make that color. So let's get off to my computer and show you guys some settings. Okay guys, so let's go over a few settings here. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up Simplify 3D. I will kind of explain some of the settings for other slicers as I'm going through Simplify. So we're gonna go ahead, we've got our Matter Hackers astronaut brought in here. It's a very well designed print where it deals with overhangs, as you can see, and you print this with no supports. I like to just print these as test prints, hollow, with 2 outer perimeters. Then it'll really show a lot of stuff in there that could be going wrong. So let's go under edit processings here. So I'm gonna switch here because, well, yeah, I'm gonna switch to a more basic profile here. We'll use, let's say, my D9 profile that I use for other printers as well as like CR, Tennis Pro V2s, etc. because of the bed size. Pretty generic when it comes to PLA. Okay, so on your basic Bowden style machine, most Bowden tubes will retract between 5 and 6 millimeters of retraction. If you're getting holes in your prints, in the Simplify, we have extra retraction. Restart distance, vertical retraction lift is something where it'll actually lift up in between its movements and retractions. I don't particularly need it when you're not over extruding. So in Cura, what the extrusion multiplier here is called, as you can see highlighted under here, this is called flow rate in Cura. So in Prusa Slicer, it'll still be called extrusion multiplier. I find I'm never at the 1.0. I find I'm always in and around 90 to 87. Now that does vary on the filament you're using. Of course, you're gonna wanna select your nozzle size. You can also use coasting and stuff if you're getting curling, things like that. Also depends on your printer. But basic settings with this between the 0.9 and the 1.0 seems to be good for your extrusion multiplier, or in Cura, your flow rate. Moving on to the layers. Now this is entirely up to you guys. You want to use 0.2 layer heights, 0.16 layer heights. You also have the amount of top layers, bottom layers. I leave that up to you guys what you want to do. I always like to leave, my first layer height and width around 100 and 125%. I always slow down my first layer. That's why you can see here the speed's at 50%. That way you get really good layer adhesion. I always love to use the Optimize for faster printing. It picks a spot. In Prusa Slicer, you can actually, they've went so advanced that you can paint in where you want that start and stop point, which is pretty cool. Now, that's basic settings there. Obviously, if you're using vase mode or anything like that, the options are there. I always do a skirt. I normally do 3, 2.5 millimeters away from the part. Now, if you're using other materials, obviously that can vary. But for the Value PLA, I like to be able to see the skirt. That way, if you're using a BL Touch or an inductor probe, you can baby step or change your Z offset in the beginning of your print, which is really nice. Again, infill, very basic. I do for test prints with these, I leave it hollow. These ones were done by Mr. Lee here in the shop. He did them at 5% infill, 3 perimeters, and he did 215. Now I find this filament can be printed anywhere from 195 to 215. You can actually kind of start to play with the finishes due to the temperature. So overlap line, that's how far you actually overlap onto your outline. Now this is all depending on the printer. This printer in particular is around 50% depending on the material. With something like this PLA, it might be more down around 30. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next part, which is support. On a Matter Hackers Astronaut, there's no need for it. It's a test print to test for overhangs and things like that. So we don't need it. You guys can always enable supports for your prints. Your support percentage, that's entirely up to you. Now, back into the temperature thing. I always, with PLA, I haven't ever varied off of using a bed temp of 60 to 50. Always seems to be good. And then again, in your temperature setting, I personally print this PLA at 200. Lee, on his printers, he's doing it at 215, so it can handle a little bit more temperature if needs be due to your printer. Cooling, always with PLA, I never even think about that one. After the first layer, I go ahead and I run 100% fan. Now the G code, this is entirely up to your printer. So, you know, the size, your offsets, things like that, you can have those all set up in the slicer. That's entirely up to you there. And then your scripts, again, it's entirely up to your printer. Speeds, I find this stuff works great. I've printed it at home on my Ender 3 that's fully upgraded with our Micro Swiss linear rail, as well as the linear rail kit we carry here, and it prints really fast, tuned up on Clipper. I think I printed this stuff at around 160 millimeters a second before I really started to see fatigue. Now again, that's depending on the part. So your speeds, I leave that up to you. If you want to get a good print, you go around 60 to 80 millimeters a second. Depending on the detail, you can always bump down into the 40s. I do recommend for detailed prints slowing down. I find you'll get a lot better results. If you want to get something that's simple to print out quick, you can also ramp up those speeds. But I find this stuff works well between 60 and 80. This is nothing concerning the filament other than obviously the price. If you wanted to go ahead and input any of those values, as well as the diameter, that is definitely important. Now advanced, this is where you can add things in. Now this is neat in Simplify 3D. You can actually allow gap fill, so it'll fill in between your outer lines with allow gap fill. Now if you want a clean part, I go ahead and switch that to allow single extrusion. Again, that's entirely up to you and what you are printing. So now that we're back at the main page, we've got our astronaut. This is just for some people maybe using Simplify, not just to do with our Value PLA. It's really easy. You just go ahead, you hit prepare to print. It'll compile your STL, your G code for you, and then you just go ahead and save. Now, if you've got your card plugged in, you can pick your destination. I'm assuming all you guys will already know how to do that. With that being said, I hope all this information was helpful. If you do have any questions or concerns about printing this filament, you can always give us a shout. We do have a forum called 3dprintingspace.com. We have a lot of knowledgeable staff as well as our community members there to help you. There has been lots of people with great success with this Value PLA. I find myself, it prints really well if you're looking for something affordable. Can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Hope this was helpful. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and drop your comments. We'd love to hear from you guys.